All right, let's do it. Good afternoon. If this is Monday, it has to be the podcast time for Unapologetic Amateur Looking for Experts. This is a program that's brought to you every Monday from 4 to 5 with myself as co-host. The host and the producer of the program is Ruby Williams-Shivers. The producer is Sheila Brown-Bird. And the engineer and the studio owner is Norman Bradley. Also, our consultants are Lula and another young lady. Her name is Juanita. Okay? So, Lula, hello and welcome. Today, we're going to have a guest that's coming in a little while, and we'll engage with our guest. But I'd like to really state this. This is so funny. As I was doing my prep for today, came across some information I want to share with you. Back in the day, when I was in school, we had what they call show and tell. And what it means that you were bringing something from home, and you would show it to the class, and you would tell what it's about. I'd like to start this program today talking about this book. The book that we talked about several times on the program is Why Shouldn't I Cry? And it's by Ruby Williams-Shivers. And it is the Ode to the Black Man. And this book is very important for this program because basically it introduces the whole concept of the amateur and the expert. In the book here, on page 10, Ruby identifies the amateur. It says the amateur speaks with feeling. Then that's the amateur. The expert, well, the expert, according to this book, the expert speaks with facts. So you have the amateur and you have the expert. And many times we have to realize that we have concepts and ideas about different things, but most of the time they're just something that's off the top of our heads. It's something that's not really rooted in facts. So we might have a lot of concepts and a lot of ideas about what certain things are, but unless we go to the expert, it's kind of hard for us to really come to a meeting of the minds. And so today I am honored, really, to have a young man who's going to join me, and we're going to talk about something that everybody thinks they know something about. And that topic is racism. I know for myself personally, I had a lot of concepts and a lot of ideas about racism, but it wasn't until I sat down with this young man's book this weekend and I realized that the idea I had about racism was just that, an idea. It was a concept that I had. But as I read his book, I got really deep into the whole subject of what racism was really about. And I like to quote an idea that he had. And he says here, to better understand racism, there must be a meeting of the minds about what it means instead of what many think it means. Okay, so again, what it really means and what we think it means. So I'd like to bring in my brother, if I can at this time, and begin our discussion. Are you there, my brother, Professor Kenyatta?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Very well. Very well.
Okay.
Okay, I want to welcome you to the program. And I also want to make sure that I give you props. So this is how we greet our guests here. That's just for you, my brother. And it's interesting, before I get into your bio, I just want to tell you that this, for me, is a very special moment because I became aware of you in 2019, believe it or not.
Mm.
And I
Okay.
came and became aware of you because you're in this book that I just mentioned. In this book, Why Shouldn't I Cry by Ruby Williams Shivers. And, we talk about the amateur and the expert on this particular program. And she identifies
Hmm.
you as an expert. And she says here from page 8, she said, African World Studies expert, Professor Kamal Kenyatta, affirms that black men live courageously in the face of such intimidation and threats from the white power structure. These include the police and other state sanctioned operatives designed to create fear and mental paralysis. Despite these attempts to inject fear, not only have black men withstood such for centuries, they have taken the challenge and endured the risk while asserting their humanity and their manhood. And so she was saying that many people are under the impression that people fear the black man, and that's really not so because they think that that's because of our presence. But there's another subject at work that really, as you say in our book, they attempt to put us in our place. So I want to read a brief bio, and then I want to get into your book. And so it says here, and I got this from my research, it says you are a professor of African American Studies at Lafayette College and Northampton Community College. Former professor of Africana Studies at William Patterson University. You live in Pennsylvania and spend your free time playing drums in a popular 10-piece funk band. Professor Kenyatta is a business culture coach working with organizations that want to increase profits by penetrating African American markets using his cultural connection formula. What is that formula that you talk about?
Okay, and thank you for having me on today, brother. That I was doing that at that time. I've switched gears with that. I still do coaching, but I primarily coach college leaders, college presidents, provosts, deans, and so forth who want to advance their careers, gain a little bit more respect, and create a balance between their work and their life.
Okay.
Because finding that a lot of them have the turnover is tremendous in all of those positions because it's so demanding, and they don't get the kind of help that they need
Okay.
to create. They have a lot of burnout, so I
Yes.
work with them in creating some kind of balance with that.
Yeah. And it's
So
interesting. Yeah.
the formula that I use for that is I call it the yellow brick road
Okay.
methodology. And I'm using the imagery from the famous movie The Wizard of
Yes.
Oz,
I'm familiar with that.
Dorothy on the yellow brick road
Yeah.
trying to get back home. And so what I'm helping them to do is to get back to themselves, to get
Okay.
back home, because that's where home really is.
Yes. Yes. And it's interesting that you mentioned that. But the thing that I want to talk to you about today on this Monday, I want to tell you that, brother, you messed up my weekend. Okay, I was just going
Oh,
to chill, but I saw that you had this book out, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to try to order it and get it sent to my house. I'm just going to just put it on my Kindle. So my brother,
okay.
the book it blew my mind because I thought that I knew what racism was, but the way
Hmm.
you broke it down, we got to talk about that.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
it was just so deep and was just so well presented that I said, you know what? I got to go to an expert. And
Mm.
my first question for you, and it's really based on the title of the book. The book is entitled "The White People Show: How to Understand Racism and Still Be Wrong About It." And so my question to you is, what is the White People Show?
Well, the white people show is what we're bombarded with 24/7, 365 and a quarter.
Yes, yes.
It's everything that we are exposed to, everything we look at, and we can use television and movies as an example. You turn on the television and you see nothing but white people doing,
Yes.
accomplishing, achieving, and then they throw in a black person here or maybe a Hispanic person and sometimes an Asian, but
Yes.
it's all white people, no matter what it is, no matter what movie you look at, what
Mm-hmm.
news
Yep.
you look at, what kind of entertainment you look at. It's about them,
Yes.
and everybody else is kind of incidental to that now, just in just outside of television and so forth. That's what we encounter as well. Most of the stores we go
Yes, yes,
to,
yeah.
most of the people that are working in the stores, unless we're right in the hood, or and even in the hood,
Yeah,
you
right,
have
right.
other ethnic groups running things, and we're going to them, patronizing them.
Hmm.
So we're constantly bombarded with the imagery of them, their ideas, their worldview,
Hmm. Hmm.
no matter where we turn.
Yeah,
So it's the
and,
one
yeah.
people show.
And it's almost like we're like sort of bystanders looking at these people having fun doing
Mhm.
this and being that and that kind of thing. It's almost like
Yeah.
we're in the seats looking at the show, but it has nothing to do with our real lives. But
Right.
yet the idea of themselves is really, if I understand, is really the essence of racism. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
how
Yeah.
do you define racism in your book? Racism is what?
Racism is the belief or doctrine that one or one's group is superior to all others based simply on skin color. That's pretty much a dictionary definition. What it boils down from a historical perspective is the notion that white people, or those who classify themselves with white skin,
Hmm.
that they are better than those who don't have white skin.
Hmm.
And that's seen in every area of life, in law, religion, education, economics, housing, everything.
Yeah, yeah.
They position themselves as superior. And I also talk about the fact that racism, I always say racism, white supremacy, racism slash white supremacy,
Okay.
because they're equal. They are the same thing.
Hmm.
There is no black racism or black supremacy or yellow or brown racism or supremacy. There's
Hmm.
only white supremacy. They're the only ones who ever positioned themselves and said that they were superior to others solely because of their skin color, not because of merit, not because of achievement,
Hmm.
because they are white.
Well, I
They have
think that
white
yeah.
skin.
Well, that's very clear, and that's why I think the confusion comes in when people identify racism as prejudice or discrimination. But you say in your book
Mhm,
it's not that. It's not prejudice. It's not discrimination. That's
mhm.
not racism.
Exactly. Yeah, because you hear people say when they mean, excuse me,
Hmm.
when they mean to say racism, they'll say discrimination
Yeah,
or
yeah.
prejudice.
Yes, yes.
But because we've been taught to be afraid,
Hmm.
afraid to just confront that and say that. Let me get a
Hmm.
water.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. I think I'm
You
okay.
ready?
We've been taught to be afraid of it. And I can go into a little bit of the history of that,
Yeah, please.
why we don't want to say that. But prejudice is just making a distinction between or having drawing conclusions about something before
Hmm.
you have all the information or enough facts to draw a conclusion, and you're prejudiced. Well, I lean this way or I lean that way without having all of the information. Now, you can have um, racial prejudice
Yes,
where it's applied to the topic of racism.
yes.
The same with discrimination. I like black shoes over brown
Okay,
shoes. I
okay.
discriminate between these two things or three things.
Hmm.
And you can have racial discrimination as
Hmm.
well. But when it comes to how racism fits into the whole piece is where whites can, or those who classify themselves as white skin, will use that their racism
Hmm.
prejudicially,
Yeah.
or their racism discriminatorily for their benefit
Hmm. Yeah.
over against the benefit and to the detriment
Hmm.
of others.
And it's so funny because when you make that an indictment, there white people say, "Well, no, that's not me. I'm not racist,"
Mhm,
you know, and because
mhm,
they don't want to
mhm.
feel that way, they say, "Well, you're a black racist because you said it, but you said in your book that black people can't be racist."
No, it's impossible. Impossible. And see what happened. What started me down this whole journey was well, I teach African American studies, and then I was teaching a racism, sexism class for years at William Patterson
Yes,
University.
yes, yes,
And I just went into the class thinking, everybody knows what racism is.
yes, yes.
And I'm talking about it, and then the students would say certain things, and I'm like, that's not racism.
Mhm.
This is what racism is, blah, blah, blah. And it would happen semester after semester. And I'm like,
Yeah.
then I started the class off asking students what was racism, and I would put their answers on the board and so forth.
Hmm, hmm.
And very rarely would I get a student who would get the answer correct.
Okay.
I mean, I can go back over almost 20 years of teaching, and I can almost pinpoint less than 10 students who got it correct.
Yes, yes.
And so I started clearly defining what it was for them. And the book resulted in the fact that I'm like, I need to put this stuff down because I teach it all the
Right,
time.
right, right.
I need to put it down in a book form because people would ask me. And then I would look at television
Hmm.
and so forth, talk shows or news,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're identifying something as racist. And I'm like, that's not
Okay,
racist.
right, right, right.
That's not racist there. And whenever they decide, well, we're going to have a discussion about racism, I found it peculiar that
Hmm.
nobody ever defined what they were talking
That's
about.
right. Yeah,
And they
yeah.
assumed that everybody was talking about the same thing. And clearly they were butting heads because one person meant this and another person meant that. And they couldn't have a coherent
Hmm.
conversation.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
And it's
and so that,
beautiful. But one of the things that really got me, because as I was reading your story, it really parallels my story as well, because I taught at
mhm.
Essex County College, Union County College, Kane University, Jersey City State University. And when I
Yeah, you
came,
went. I went to all those
yeah,
places.
yeah,
I
yeah.
started at Essex County. I went to
No,
Jersey City State.
that's why
I
I'm
didn't go to
surprised
King.
we haven't met before. That's what's blowing my mind, because as I was reading it, and then you have this one story that you really have to share with our audience, and it blew my mind because I had the same type of thing.
Mhm,
I'm Professor Terry Benjamin. Okay, I'm new at this because everybody else has all these degrees and whatnot. They have this big
mhm,
anthology, a big book,
mhm,
and they said, well, you got to make a syllabus. And so I make my syllabus, and I see there's a little section where they got Nikki Giovanni and Sonia Sanchez and whatnot. And I said, well, I'm going to teach all this. And they looked at my syllabus, and they said, who's Sonia Sanchez? Who's Nikki Giovanni? I said, it's in the book. But they don't care about that. And when you were teaching, they'd ask you to teach a course on Introduction to African Civilizations. And you became my
mhm.
hero because you put together your syllabus, and they said, well, this is good, but where are the white authors? You remember
Exactly.
that? What was
It's a
that
mind
about?
blower, man. I had a dog fight with these people,
Of
man.
course, of course.
Um, they wanted to know why I didn't have any white authors for this class, and I'm like,
Wait a minute.
and I asked them, I said, well, Western civilization, how many black authors do you have in the Western civilizations
Yes,
class?
yes, yes, yes.
None.
Yeah.
None. And they were then I had to prove the credentials of the people that they were qualified and so forth and so on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that again is white supremacy. How can you be talking about this and you don't have white people in here?
And that's so.
You know, people show it like, well, you can have a show and you don't have us in it.
Yeah, but it's crazy because they get insulted. A friend of mine, Wade Hudson, he was at this book fair. It's a black book fair, and this white
Hmm.
guy walks into the auditorium, goes to Wade's table. Wade is a black author. He says, "We're the white authors." Well, it's a black book fair. Don't you
Yeah.
understand? But he was insulted. How dare you
Yeah.
leave out white people? How dare you?
Yeah. That is their positioning. They feel that they are the default position for everything, everywhere.
Wow.
And then they question if they are not. I remember having a student, a white student,
Mhm.
female, and she had written in one of the papers about how she felt uncomfortable in the class because she was the only white person in the class and so forth. I told her, I said, now that's rare that I get well, it's not rare that I get a lot of white students. It's rare that I get an all black class. I had an all black class
Wow.
this
Okay.
past semester
Yeah. Yeah.
because I have whites, Hispanics, Asians, and so forth in the classes. But I said, those the black students that are in the class with you right here, they in every other class that they go to, they're probably the only one or two black people in that class.
Yes. Yes.
They
Yes.
deal with this and they have been dealing with it pretty much all of their lives.
That's right.
And you're uncomfortable, but that again goes back to this normalcy of white supremacy. Where are the white? I feel uncomfortable. Like there's no reason for you to feel uncomfortable in this class. I mean, she went on through it, and so, but I had to have that talk.
But the funny thing is, they expect that because I spent 30 years as a college administrator at Union County College, and then when I retired, I began teaching, and I was what I call a full-time adjunct professor because I taught at 4 different colleges. Make a long story short, I retired when I was 69. I'm 74
wow.
now.
When you were 69, bro, how old are you, man? You looking like you like about early 60s now.
That's my passion. That's what my passion shows. But the point I'm making is that when because I started at 57 and a half. When I started at Union County College at age 23. The first day of my first day on campus, I went to the HR department and I said, "When can I retire?" She said, "You just got here." I said, "I know, but I like to plan ahead." Make a long story short, she said, "You can retire at 57 and a half." So from 23 to 57 and a half, I did different jobs on the campus. And then when I retired, I went back to her again. And I said, I want to retire. She couldn't believe it. But my plan was to get my pension for Union County, going to teaching because I had a family, and I couldn't actually support a family on a teacher's salary, so I went in there. My point is this: when I retired, there were still students, white students, coming to my class. I've been here for 4 or 5 years. I never had a black professor.
Man,
have you ever counted that?
Oh yeah. I do a survey. Of that. Not only I just do it with everybody in the class. I ask the class how many of them have had black professors or black teachers, and I'm shocked at the number of black students who have never had a black teacher. In fact, my ex-wife, when we first got together years ago, and I was telling her about, I grew up in the South. I had all black teachers, black administrators, black principals, everything, and she said she never had a black teacher until she got to Essex County College. That she had never had I'm like, you never had a black teacher? I was shocked. But so the students, for a lot of cases, I'm the only black teacher that they encounter, and particularly for the white, white kids. But for the black students as well, I'm the first and sometimes the only one that they will encounter.
But you're currently teaching now, right?
Yes. In fact, I'm still in the classroom. Final exams all day today.
But has that changed? Are there more black students in the institutions, or is it the same, or has it gotten worse?
Wow, it depends on where you are. Okay, so I'm at Northampton Community College this semester, and I had an all black class, and I think 2 or 3 Hispanics, which are black. It's like black. When I was at Lafayette, I haven't been at Lafayette in a couple of years. I had a pretty much evenly mixed class, black, white, and Hispanic, evenly matched. It wasn't a predominantly black class. At Lehigh, it was predominantly black. But when I was at William Patterson, I used to have predominantly black students. There would be a mix because we were a department. And so students were majoring and minoring, so they had to have those classes. And so I had a lot more black students. But my whole career has been primarily, it's been a mixture. But predominantly black in most of the cases. And see, when I have an all black class, I go in a little harder.
Oh, you do? Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
sometimes you don't want to air a certain dirty laundry.
Of course, of
When
course.
people ever when there's all black class, I just put everything out on the table. You know, it's
Yeah,
like we gotta have a discussion here.
yeah.
You know,
But yeah,
so
but it's funny though because I know, and I just reading your book. You know, I said, man, this I would like to have him for my professor. You know, he's dope. You know, I don't know if to use that, but he's cool. And the thing
yeah.
that makes you cool, I think that made me cool was the fact that I can bring into the classroom things that the students
Hmm.
were experiencing in their life, and it made
Right.
me laugh when I got into your book, and I was reading it, and I laughed out loud, man. I mean, I had to stop reading the book because it made me laugh because you have this situation where you were talking about, well, you were talking to one of your professors, okay? And you were talking about like
Hmm.
real music and art music, you know?
Yeah.
And that's when
Yeah.
that's when you started talking about Teddy Pendergrass and James Brown. What was that about? I want you to relate that
Right.
to our audience.
Right. And that was at Essex County College. I won't call
It
him Professor
was.
Nate. I know he's probably deceased now, but I was taking a music. I majored in music, and at Essex County, I majored in music specifically. Then when I went to Jersey City State, I majored in music and business.
Yeah, yes,
But
yes.
I had to take a music appreciation course. And you know what they mean by music appreciation. You know, you're studying the European classical artists,
Yes.
Mozart, Beethoven, and
Yeah, yes,
Bach,
yes,
and so
yes.
forth. And so we had this assignment where we would go to some kind of musical event, concert, or whatever, and write a paper about it.
Hmm.
And I had asked about, I said, well, I think James Brown was coming. I was going to be somewhere, and I said I was going to see James Brown.
Yes, yes, yes.
And the professor was like, "Can't really do that.
What is
That's not
that?
real. That's not real
That's not
music."
real music.
And I was throwing them back. I'm like, "What do you mean? I mean, this is stuff I grew up with. This is real music."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I said, "Well, what about Teddy Pendergrass?" I said, "No, it's the same thing."
What
So
are you
this,
talking
you want to
about?
go somewhere where you can get the real music.
Right.
So, you know, at that time, I didn't have the sophistication or the knowledge to be able to combat that. But, you know, I was able to look back on it and say, how dare this guy
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
say that real music was the music that Europeans made and
Exactly,
the music that
exactly.
black people and other people made, that was just, that's not real music, you
And,
know.
yeah, and it's so funny
That,
because when we teach these courses, you know, I've taught many literature courses, you know, not just black literature, but just literature in general. And I would teach Arthur Miller, The Death of the Salesman,
mhm,
but I would
mhm.
also teach Fences by August Wilson.
Right,
And my
right.
colleagues, they would teach, of course, the Miller, but they would not teach the Wilson. As a matter of fact, that was a
Mhm.
part in the book where they didn't even touch.
Let it
And I said
live.
I felt that was an insult to literature. If you know literature, you know Miller
Mhm.
and Wilson and Giovanni and Sanchez, as well as Robert
Right,
Frost and all these other people. And I
right.
felt that it was really like malpractice, especially if you could consider yourself a literature teacher, you know?
Hmm. But that's how they come at things. That's how they approach things. They approach things totally from their position in the world. And what they'll do, for example, if you're talking and having a general conversation and music comes up and they're like, "Oh man, oh Blue Eyes, Frank Sinatra, he's the greatest singer in the world," blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
yeah.
And I'm like, "No, I'm like Nat King Cole was the best singer in the world." I said, in fact, Frank Sinatra was trying to imitate Nat King Cole. Not to take anything away from Frank Sinatra,
No,
because
no,
Frank
no, no, no,
Sinatra,
no, no.
believe it or not, a lot of people don't know he was very active in the civil rights movement. He got a
Yes,
lot of
yes,
people in different places and
yeah,
so
yeah,
forth.
yeah, yeah.
But the point is, they always want to bring up whatever, some white counterpoint. Okay, you talk about Muhammad Ali, they talk about a fictitious character, Rocky.
Right.
You know, you bring up Bruce Lee, they got Chuck Norris. You bring up rock and roll, they got to talk about Elvis Presley, not Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, and those guys. You know, so Elvis Presley becomes the king
And
of
that's
rock and
something.
roll.
Yeah, and the thing that made me laugh because you talk about Frank Sinatra. Now, if you talk about Frank Sinatra, you have to talk about Quincy Jones. Okay,
Yeah,
because that was
yeah.
his
I mean,
arranger. That's the person who made him look good, and it always makes me
yeah.
laugh where these so-called educated people, they're so narrow. They're so
Hmm.
narrow in their pedagogy. They're so narrow in what they present. Because when I was coming up, at the time I was coming up, hip hop was a big thing, and I wasn't
Right.
very much in hip hop. And my idea of pedagogy was to teach like KRS-One. He talks about
Mhm.
edutainment. So I'm
Right.
doing the edutainment thing. I'm educating you,
Right.
but I'm entertaining you. And the kids had such a great time in my class. We had such a great time. We would watch videos, and we would do all this stuff. And one time, a teacher was in the next room, a white teacher. She came over
Mhm.
after class had dismissed, and she came up to me in awe, and she said, "You know what? You seem to have been having such a good time." Like that was strange, almost like I wish I was in your class. you know. But the
Yeah.
point I'm making is that we always have to
Yeah.
bring more to the party because again, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was coming up, I was a EUF student, Education Opportunity Fund student. I'm sure you're familiar with
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
they told me that I
Basic
was culturally
hog,
disadvantaged.
hog,
Yeah. That I was
basic
culturally
opportunity
disadvantaged.
grant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I got that. Yeah, this is kind of
yeah, and
yeah,
the thing was is that I didn't know I was culturally disadvantaged because I knew my music.
yeah,
You know, I mean I went
yeah.
to concerts and that kind of thing. And it's so funny, I didn't realize that I was a writer till I got to Union County College. I was working for the school newspaper. Make a long story short, as a cultural experience, they took us to Norfolk Symphony Hall, and they took us to an Isaac Hayes concert, and I
Oh,
was just
okay.
blown away. And I came back, Professor Kenyatta, and I wrote a review of the concert, and it was
Uh-huh.
I was so blown away that we had this tabloid sized newspaper, and I did
Uh-huh.
like 6 columns of this long thing, and it was almost like I
Yeah.
took you to the concert, and I realized that I had talent for writing because I was just so enthused. But my point is that you don't know what you can do unless you've been given a chance. A lot of times they just sort of shut us out and shut us down.
Yeah. Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. They shut you down before you get started. Because we have a long history
hmm
of accomplishment and they know this.
Okay.
It's not like they don't know. You have to ask yourself why, if the narrative that they have sold the world, that black people, African people came from jungles, didn't have any civilizations, didn't do anything else, why did you work so hard? Number one, you
hmm
had a law
hmm
against them reading. Now, if somebody that comes from a place that they don't know anything about reading, you're not worried about them learning how to read. They're not concerned with
right,
that.
right.
They know we came from a reading culture, contrary to what they
Is that
have
something? Yeah,
taught us,
yeah. We do.
and they know we had accomplished things. You don't go and get people out of a jungle to build a civilization.
Uh,
You get
uh,
people from a civilization that have already done it to help you do what you want to do, and they know this
mhm.
about us, and so they have to squash us down. And we, or Francis Chris Wells, always thought about, we are the biggest threat to their supposed supremacy.
Yes.
We are the biggest threat. They know that. And that's why they're locking us up. They're shooting us with our hands up. They're doing all kinds of things to terrorize us, to kill us, so that we will not even have the courage to challenge them. But they can't. I mean, we still do it. I use the example of someone. Imagine you were fighting, and I used Mike Tyson because he was
Yeah.
so,
They can relate to that,
he
right?
knocked
Yeah.
down one leg gone. Imagine you fighting Tyson
Yeah.
and you beat Tyson up. You beat him to the ground. You jump on him. You knock him down. And you think you got it, and then you turn around and Tyson is still coming at you with his fist. It's like, that's how we are. I mean, they have done, the most, there has not been written yet
hmm
a horror movie that equates to the horror
hmm
that Black people, African people have gone through and continue to go through. They haven't made a movie that terrifying yet
but
to compare.
my brother, how do they explain and how do they deal with somebody like W.E.B. Du Bois? I mean, he's a scholar among scholars. How do they dismiss that? How do they ignore a man of such stature? How?
That's a part of white supremacy. See, when you talk about white supremacy, and so when people bring up the notion of, well, you got white supremacy, you got black supremacy, you got black supremacy, I'm like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Are you listening to what you're saying? Do you know what the word supremacy means? It means there is only one.
Yes, only one.
You can't have 2 or 3 supremacies. That's the essence of the word. I am at the top of the mountain. There is no other.
Yes, yes.
So if you say there is white supremacy and black supremacy, you have created a category that doesn't even exist.
Doesn't even exist, right? Yeah.
Applied to the real world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and so that's why I'm saying that there are no black supremacists. I mean, we can say it, but where is it in practice? They have a history.
Yes, yes.
A methodology, if you will, and a system that is racist to the core, white supremacist to the core. And see, what they've done with us is they've confused us to believe that, okay, you have racism, and then you got these white supremacists over here, these neo-Nazis and Ku Klux Klan people. That's the white supremacists. No. I'm like, this educational institution that we're in is a white supremacist institution. And I would say to the students, I'm like, who are the trustees on the board of trustees for this college? Let's look at that.
Yeah.
They're white.
Yeah.
The predominant number of professors at the school. You got 3 or 4 black professors, maybe, or a couple of Hispanic professors, and so forth. It's predominantly white. Right. So they're running the show. They want to make it. Then they came up with this reverse discrimination, reverse racism.
What?
And what I do for something like that is I'll tell the students, I'm like, what your assignment is this week is to, in your travels, I want you to identify any black businesses that you see, and how many black businesses you're going to go to over the next 3 or 4 days or a week or however long I would give the assignment. And it's an eye opener for them. Yeah. It's an eye opener. In fact, I'll ask them, I'm like, of the clothes that you're wearing right now, how much of it did you buy from a black owned business?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Or your wardrobe. How much of your wardrobe consists of clothing that you bought from a black-owned business? What about your shoes? What black shoe store did you go to?
Yeah.
Black shoe manufacturer.
Yeah.
Then when you talk about reverse racism, it's like idiotic.
But it's almost that they feel that they have to defend themselves. That you're indicting all whites, and what you're saying.
It is an indictment, and see, that's the fear of it. See, this book, when you give that definition of racism, it is an indictment of white people, and they know it.
Okay.
This is why what has happened over the last, it's almost 30-some years now. I've been saying 20-some years, but I didn't realize.
Time flies, right?
How old have you got, right? That, when I was growing up, everybody knew what a racist was. It was the white people were the racists.
Yes.
There wasn't no black person that was a racist. We knew that. I grew up, and I tell it in here, I grew up when I was a kid, going to the doctor's office with my grandmother, and you go, and there's one doctor, Dr. Davenport, and when you get there, there's 2 doors. There's a door for coloreds and a door for whites. Whoa. And you'd go in there, and everybody would go to the same. You'd be sitting in there, the whites are sitting on this side, the blacks are sitting on this side, and the receptionists are sitting in the middle.
Yes.
But when they called your name, everybody went back into the same examining room with the same doctor.
That's right. Yeah.
Even as a kid, I knew it. This don't make sense, right? And so we knew who the racist was. It wasn't until I would pinpoint probably around somewhere in the 80s and the 90s where they began to confuse us about, because we're going through the 70s and Black is proud and so forth, and we were rising consciously. We were rising, so they had to confuse, and this is how white supremacy works.
Oh, okay.
It does not want to reveal itself. It just transforms itself into something else, but it's the same thing.
Wow.
Like they say, a pig with lipstick on is still a pig. It's not no matter how much lipstick.
That don't change, right? Yeah.
It's the same thing. And this is what they did. I distinctly remember, and I talk about it in the book. I'm watching television. It was on a Saturday afternoon. And this, like, I guess, public service message came on. And you had a variety of people all saying the same thing. I'm responsible for racism. It would be a white person or a white man, a white woman, a black man, a black woman, a Hispanic person, a Japanese person. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, hell no.
No way,
I'm not responsible for solving the problem of racism. I'm not the problem. I'm like, if that's the case, what was Dr. Martin Luther King fighting against? You know, they've changed that narrative as much as they possibly can. He was fighting for everybody's right. He was fighting for black people's rights, period.
Yeah.
Everybody else got on the bandwagon later on.
Yeah. But the thing that gets me is that I guess people understand that their idea of prosperity is doing for themselves. Our idea of prosperity is doing for everybody. And I want to read this quote by W.E.B. Du Bois. And he said, we should measure the prosperity of a nation not by the number of millionaires, but by the absence of poverty, the prevalence of health, the efficiency of the public schools, and the number of people who can and do read worthwhile books. Okay? I always tell my students it's about mind, body, and books. I can't get enough books, you know. And now we live in an era like, you know, I was talking to Sister Ruby, and you know, and I came up with your book, you know, and I said, well, look, I'm going to order that book, and so I ordered my Kindle, and like seconds later, I got it in my hands, you know. Right. And the thing is that looking at, you know, reading the book, I was really impressed by the scholarship of all the books that you referenced to. And there's books that, you know, we should be reading, you know. But it seems to me that when you ask a person to read a book, it's kind of hard, but you can recommend a documentary. And in your book, you recommend a documentary that I really have to find. And you talk about a documentary called The Color of Fear. Can you talk a little bit? Why is that so important, that documentary, The Color of Fear?
Oh, man, that film, I think it captures how racism works in a minuscule. The film is it's done by, I forget his name, Chu, I believe is his last name. He's an Asian guy. He's the one who conducts the whole experiment. And what it is, I think they were there for like 4 or 5 days, this group of men.
Okay.
And you had, I think, 2 white men, a couple of 2 black men, a Hispanic, a Mexican, and so forth, right? And so when they first start off, it's real, you know, cordial, you know,
yeah,
well,
right,
I'm so and so, and they would talk about their experiences about race, with race and so forth, but it was kind of mild. But as the days wore on, there's the one white guy in there that he's like, I don't see racism, I don't see color, and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, it's just pushing the buttons of everybody else.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
after a few days, I mean, they almost at each other's throat, but they particularly after this white guy, because he just could not see it at all. And you all should work harder. You should get more education and blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah,
right,
blah,
right, blah, blah,
blah.
blah. Yeah, yeah.
But he had the biggest breakthrough
Okay.
because when he understood what they were saying and their experiences and so forth, it hit him like a ton of bricks. And he broke down crying.
Oh,
He's
wow.
like,
Oh, wow.
I couldn't say, I didn't know it was like this, you know. And anybody who sees that, they get to put themselves in each one of those people's shoes, because all of us catch people who are black, brown, and yellow catch the hell.
Yeah, right,
No
right,
doubt
right.
about it.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Poor whites catch hell too. They just don't. they living in the comfort that they're white.
Of
you
course,
know,
yeah. That's
craziest
superior,
thing.
right? But it's so funny, yeah, because they identify with that, you know, because there's some Hispanic people who think they're white.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where that's coming from. But one of the things that we got to get to, and because I don't want people to think this is a gloom and doom conversation. Because in your book, you know, I mean, you talk about a lot of these things, but you also talk about getting into a place of brightness. What I mean, after all this discussion about white supremacy and that kind of stuff, where's the light? Where's the brightness?
Okay, the brightness is sometimes the opportunity is in the problem.
Okay.
And it's something I was thinking about earlier this afternoon. And I had said, you know, because I was down on the election and so forth,
Of
and
course,
then you know,
that was a blow.
and I thought about, you know, this may be an opportunity for us. It may be the thing that we need to like push us to another place, to wake us up to doing some other things that we kind of had given up on, or maybe don't think that we need.
Okay.
Now we may realize, hey, look, we need to have our own education. We need to be educating our own children.
Yes, right.
That it may be that road that takes us there. That and what I talk about in the book is in terms of, despite racism is a fact. It's all around us. You're not going to escape it. It's like being in a bowl of milk. You're going to come out with some milk on you, no matter. Even if you escape, you still got milk on you.
That's right.
And so when we look back at our people and our sojourn, particularly here in the United States, or in the Americas, when you look at some of our people and what they were able to do with racism just flagrant.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Look at someone like Booker T. Washington.
Yes.
Who doesn't even learn his ABCs until he's 16 years old.
That's right.
But he goes on to build to what is now Tuskegee University.
Yes.
You know, so that's an example. Hey, nobody can stop us. And Muhammad Ali, of course,
of course.
Fight thing. You look at somebody like him, and what he faced, and what we don't know that he faced, that they probably didn't tell us about.
Well, that's true. But do you think that reparations might maybe solve some of this? Or I mean, what is your thought of reparations? I'll just ask you that way.
Well, when people ask me, well, you know, we got the racism problem. How do we solve it? And I say the number one thing is reparations.
Oh.
If you want to solve racism, the first thing we got to do is deal with reparations. Because if you don't want to deal with reparations, you're not serious. It's not going to be, maybe not the cure-all for everything, but it is the first step to be taken.
Wow.
Reparations, the fact, like, and I don't buy into the whole thing where they give us money for going to schools and stuff like that. Hey, there may be something for that. Okay. Like, no, just give me the money. We build our own schools.
Okay.
We can build our own schools. But now we got to have a mindset. You know, what I do kind of pause about reparations is our people if we were to give everyone a certain amount of money, whatever that amount
Yeah,
be,
whatever.
problem is, and someone has said it, if they gave us $1 million today, by the weekend, it would all be back in the hands of white people
Yeah,
because we
I've
would
heard
go and
that.
buy
Yeah,
cars, clothes, and so forth
whatever. Yeah,
from white people, money right back to them. You
right.
got to have a mindset of what do we want to do as a people. And you're not going to get everybody, but you have to get a significant number of what do they call it in chemistry? As a certain group, once you get a certain number of people doing it, then everybody will start doing it. So, like for example, back in the '70s, when a few people started wearing afros, and then all of a sudden everybody was wearing afros.
Like control group, a control group, right? Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a term for it. It'll come to me in a second.
right. Yeah.
But that's what we need. We need that group that has clear focus of what it is we want our people to do, where we want our people to go, their education. We cannot go on talking about freedom and still going to their educational systems, our children. Malcolm X said, it's fool that sends his children to his enemies to teach. Because what are they going to teach you? And we see the results of that. What we've been getting, what we're getting now is a result of that. We have to take control, just as the Jewish people take control of their children's education, Chinese people, everybody. And we must do it guilt-free. We don't care what you say about it. We're not trying to get white people's approval for anything.
Yeah, right.
So it's a mindset, but reparations, that's where it has to start. If you don't want to talk about reparations in terms of you want to solve the race problem, start with reparations. You wronged me. How are you going to fix that wrong? If you can't even acknowledge that you did wrong and compensate me for it, then you're not serious, especially when I see you doing it for everybody else.
Yeah, that's the thing. But again, I think, in your book, you quote Malcolm X, and you say in your book, you said here, this is Malcolm, he said, the goal is not to change how the white man views the black man, but how the black man views himself.
Yes.
And why is that so important?
And that's why I got a whole chapter on the N-word. The engineering of the N-word. Because somehow or another, we have convinced ourselves that it's okay to say this word, to call each other this word, and we're going to be all right, and we're going to rise and be powerful and so forth.
No.
That will never happen.
That will never happen.
As we call each other the N-word, we will be in the same position we're in 1,000 years from now. Because we don't understand number one, we don't understand what that means when you're saying that. When you call someone, for people who don't know the word, the nigger, if you don't know what that means, it means someone who is worthless. So every time you say that, you're calling your own brother and your own sister, your own people, worthless.
That's true.
And imagine if you turn that around and say, "Hey, man, you're so valuable. You are worthwhile.
You're a king. You're a queen." Yeah, right.
Yeah. And what I said back in the '60s and '70s, we were calling each other brothers and sisters.
That's right. Right. But it's so funny, because during that time, I remember definitely, I graduated from high school in 1968, and they were saying that black is beautiful. People don't understand how revolutionary that was. They say black is beautiful, especially in terms of black women, because at that time, the epitome of beauty was blonde, blue-eyed, a Charlie's Angel. Now look around at my black sisters, my mother and whatnot, they don't fit that mold. But for us to say black is beautiful, that was revolutionary. And in your book, I got about 5 minutes, but I just want to, one last thing. The book is entitled The White People Show: How to Understand Racism and Still Be Wrong About It. Why should people read that book? I know why, but I want you to tell them why.
they should read this book for whatever want to get a proper understanding of racism, white supremacy, so that it cannot be used against them. Because you'll hear black people say, well, I'm not racist. They try to make excuses. Like, no, you don't have to say that.
You're right, you know.
Because you're not a racist. You should have a proper understanding. You should know who is racist, racism, where it started, how it got started, how it's perpetuated, so that you are clear about what it is, or we are clear about what it is we must do. Racism is not going to go away, as I said, and that part that you were talking about a few minutes ago about the positive part of it. Our people have done what we have done despite racism. It's been there since we've been here. We can do more and we can do better, but we have to have the mindset, and the clarity about what you're dealing with. Don't let them define your reality by changing up the definition. It's like, no, you're silly, man. You're crazy. That's not what you're silly, man. Y'all claim to be the smartest people in the world, but you just can't get this concept here. That tells me y'all not that smart, you know?
Yeah. So do you have any other works in progress? Can we expect another book from you, maybe sometime in the near future? What do you think? What's going on in that genius mind of yours?
Well, I have my former book that my ex-wife and I were both promoting this book. It's an older book, Black Folks' Hair, Secrets, Shame, and Liberation. That one we're promoting a little bit more now. But I have a couple of things that I'm doing, but it's related more to the coaching business that I'm doing. But I'm also looking to write, and I started, and I got to get back to it, writing a history, particularly dealing with the history of Black people before we were put into slavery, dealing with the empires of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, and other, what we were doing as a people before we were put in this hell, this Ma'afa that they put us in. Because the narrative is we just came from nowhere and we were slaves, blah, blah, blah.
But you have a fiction project in the works. I want you to talk about that. You got that fiction, right? Don't forget about that. Well, I read the book now.
I forgot. I put that in the back.
You did a preview, and I was so mad. I said, "Come on, you're teasing me now." So briefly, what is that about?
The Will Seawright files, and that's a play on names. His name is Will, W-I-L-L. And middle initial is C, and his last name is Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T.
Like Just Be Simple, right? With Langston Hughes, Just Be Simple. Remember?
Right.
Yeah.
That's where
I see where you're going.
That's where I got the idea. But he is a character that he can say things or talk about things, a commentary on things. Where it's not me saying it.
Right. So the undercover there, yeah. I mean,
right. Yeah, and he's talking to another friend of his. They talk about a bunch of different issues and commentary, and what I would call a common sense. What we kind of know what most of us are saying, but not saying it out loud. You know. But he's saying it out. He's saying the silent part out loud. That's what Will Seawright is doing. Well, you just reminded me. I got to get back to work on that.
Come on, brother. But the thing is that when I saw that name, I said immediately, Just Be Simple, Langston Hughes. And the thing that I want to commend you, because we're going to have to end this conversation. But again, brother, I want to thank you for keeping it going, because you mentioned Malefe Asante, you mentioned Malana Ron Kranger, all the people that I grew up with, you know. And the thing is that I want to say to you, and I want to thank you, because you're keeping this Black scholarship alive. You're really continuing the Black genius that we really need. And I thank you for that. And I hope that this won't be the first time you and I have a conversation, because I think that we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we gotta stay in touch.
We got to, because I got to hear you drumming with that. You got to do some drum with that funk band. What's the name of the band?
Yeah.
I'm exposing all your stuff.
Yeah. Malefe Asante was my advisor at Temple, and Karinga used to come there all the time. So I got exposed to it. I mean, you talk about some genius, man.
Of course, yeah.
Those guys.
Yeah.
And Theophilo Benga from the Congo, who was a protege of Sheikh Anta Diop. I don't know if you know what
Yeah,
Diop
of
is,
course.
but
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, he was one of my teachers too. I learned the Madu Necho or Egyptian from him there. So yeah, that exposure just it
Okay, well,
dwarfed me,
but
man.
we're going to keep in touch. As a matter of fact, I'm preparing a book review for Amazon that you'll be able to read soon. But my
Okay.
brother, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your scholarship, and I thank you for your graciousness. And we
All
have
right.
some people who have been looking at us. Juanita McClure, Walter Shivers, Wakia Lewis Cotton, Rashida Johnson, LaRoyale Thompson, Dina Robinson, TQ Devon, Jabir Sandani. Again, these are our villagers, and they come and they watch the program. So again, I thank you, and I will be in touch. Okay.
Okay. I can get in touch with you, Terry Benjamin, at
Yeah.
any place.
As a matter of fact, go to my Facebook page. I do a daily music blog.
Okay,
So you check it
I'll
out,
find.
and I'll check you out, and we'll be together. So again, I want to thank those who are watching, those who have tuned in this Monday and every Monday, and we thank you, we salute you, and we appreciate you. And on that note, I will see you next Monday. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank everyone for listening in.
All right. Thank you. All right.